Welcome back, artists, and welcome newcomers. I'm Wyatt Paints, and this week, it was all one video before I broke motivation and shaved it off. I just got tired of waking up in the morning, looking in the mirror and going, one day, I'm gonna be a real boy. And don't worry, the universe paid me back with a trifecta of pimples. Nose, chin, and I got one down here. So everybody that had money on just one video before I shaved it off gets paid out. But in my defense, it was mostly gray and splotchy, and you guys know I'm vain in a weird way. Anyways, my sponsor this week, SuperShark, sent me over a classic character from the throwback Wonder Twins, Jayna. Now, even though I've got plenty of salt showing up in the beard these days, the Wonder Twins were just a little bit before my time, so I had to study up on our subject today. And one thing that came from my research is that I'm pretty sure this isn't one of those problematic sibling situations. I'm looking at you, Wanda and Pietro. That's wrong. Sometimes I wish I had some brain bleach. I just need to wash out the thoughts. Anyway, Jayna is far less problematic with her classic Hanna-Barbera style. While the colors are going to be pretty straightforward, SuperShark decided to jazz it up with a few of the animal companions on the base. So, we'll have our work cut out for us, which means I've got to stop wasting time and get to work. So, meet me over at the painting table. I'll grab my brushes so we can get started. Starting with the base, the first thing to notice is the multiple parts. Usually, I like to glue and fill the seam on pieces like this, but there's a good reason not to. And it's because this big Snakey Boy wouldn't fit over the top of the rock pillar without a split. Thankfully, SuperShark cut this very well, which will hide most of the seam. So I really won't have to worry about this much at all. In the renders that I got with the STL, these rocks were almost an icy gray, so I want to keep them as dark as I can to help the animals in Jayna stand out with a bit of pop. To start, I need to black out the rocks to get an even depth of color. Even though these were primed in black, this will act more of a backup to that black base. Because I only needed a thin dusting of primer for it to work, blacking out everything now will ensure that there's no random thin spots with the gray resin showing through. Next, I made a 50-50 mix, adding in dark gray, and switched to Big Floof for a medium light dry brush. Knocking off the excess paint here is critical, as I'm looking for this to catch mostly on the edges with just a little bit of bleed. Keeping it light makes sure that bleed only extends about a millimeter from the edge. This will set up an easy transition for the final highlight, so keeping this even across the rock is pretty important. For the final highlight on the rocks, I moved on to pure deep gray and a super light dry brush. I want this to be picked up on just the very edges of all the details, with zero bleed. Doing this just right will give me a nice and clean edge highlight, so that my rocks are very otherworldly. So patience is my greatest tool here. Time to get that Snakey Boy front and center. While it's not the same species, Mr. Longbody here reminds me of Ka from Jungle Book. So while the render has him as a full green body wiggler, I want to have a brown beige belly to add some visual interest. And the beige for this job is Banshee Brown. So I based his belly from snout to tail. For the top side, Guardian Green looks like a good fit. I'm trying to get full coverage here, pushing the color into all the in-between spaces of the scales, as I'll be giving this a wash to help separate them lighter. For now, the extra brain power needs to be focused on getting a clean border across the body. And don't be surprised if you need to go back and clean this up a bit. I know I had to. Now I needed a preppable wash by thinning it down, as this soft tone could be a bit on the thick and viscous side. So a 50-50 mix with water will get it thin enough to flow easier between the scales. Once ready, it only took a couple of glaze passes to get the definition I was looking for. As a reminder, just like with paints, you tend to get better results using multiple coats of a thin down wash than a single thick one. With the shade dry, pulling out Eternal Hunt was a great choice for a highlight on all of the green scales. Keeping this light is necessary as to not blow out the shading in the midtones. If you're successful, each scale should get a soft edge highlight, boosting the overall visual appeal. And seeing as the belly is facing the ground, it doesn't really need a highlight, so once the top scales are done, I can move on to the eyes. For the eyes, my first step is to block it in with Resplendent Red. Not only is it a bit more natural than my usual black base, but the red complements the green well. Just be aware, this is a clean painting section, so breaking out the tiny detail brushes are a must. Pair that up with some time and patience, and you should have a good foundation to build from. Next, I switched over to Flickering Flame to cover most of the eye while maintaining a thin ring around the edge. Followed by Inner Light, again maintaining a ring of the orange flame on the outside. Then it's just a matter of adding a touch of black for the pupil slits and then a bit of cleanup to even them out. For Mr. Bird, I'm going to keep it simple by starting with a leather brown to base everything. This won't be the final color, but putting this down now will make it easier to paint the final colors on top of, so a quick thin layer is the plan. Next, I hopped over to Ancient Stone to start adding the creamy undertone for the eagle's head, and thankfully, there's really no need to overthink this part and just toss down a few medium dry brush layers. This way, the leather brown will serve as the darkest shadow. Then, I backed it up with a lighter dry brush of Brain Matter Beige. I focused this more on the top of his head to reinforce the smoother areas with as much of this highlight as it can take. Once the head was dry, it was time to go back in with a detail brush to clean up and get a sharp transition to the body. Speaking of which, I ended up putting a darker brown down off camera. Sorry, I just forgot to hit the record button, but trust me, you didn't miss much. After which, I added some soft tone into the deeper creases. After which, it was a perfect time to load up some demigod flames to block in his beak. And so long as we keep the paint nice and thin, the undercoat will be visible. Give me a simple shading for free. Gotta take those wins when they come. For the final details on our bird here, deep gray came in to define his eyelids and feet, followed by Demigod coming back to fill in his eyes. With the base all finished up, it's a perfect time for me to take a second to thank my subscribers over on Patreon. Every month, these paragons of the hobby find a few bucks to throw old Waya's way. Collectively, they are the pillars that hold up the painting pantheon, and I can't thank you enough. If you would like to join the painting pantheon, you'll find a link to my Patreon below. Or you can support the channel right here on YouTube by liking and leaving a comment, because it's all fuel for the motivation engine, baby. And I can't talk about support without mentioning this week's sponsor, SuperShark. They provided this week's amazing statue, and don't worry, Zan is coming too. That's just another thing I know I don't have to worry about, along with the quality of their sculpts. They are always high detail and easy to print. If you want to get your hands on this and many other amazing statues, be sure to check out their Patreon and support those that support the channel. Heck, you might just find your next project. But in the meantime, Jayna's just about ready to slip into her jumpsuit. Let's get back to it. I figure a decent way to paint up this Wonder Twin is to go from the ground up. So that means my first step is with the boots and a nice even black base. This doesn't need to be super thick or anything, but just like the rocks, I want to make sure I have an even tone to work from, and take care of any of those thin spots that let the resin show through. Think of this more of a safety net. So it's important, but nothing to spend a lot of time on. For a first step highlight, I took a similar approach as with the rocks and mixed deep gray with black at 50-50. This will give me a highlight that's just a step lighter than black. This way, I can get a bit aggressive with my dry brush without worry of the boots looking too bright and start reading as gray. Even still, my focus is to catch this on the sharper boundaries of the boot and pick out the slight ripples. Easy peasy. Next, looking at the main body of the suit, I'll need a solid deep purple to work from, and Terrestrial Titan is a great first stop. So a quick overbrush to establish the purpleness will breeze through this step. It might be a bit difficult to keep track where you lay this down over black, but if you look for the reflections off the wet paint, it should simplify that process. To make a soft highlight, I grabbed Diabolic Plum to mix it in 50-50. This doesn't have to be exact, but just like the boots, this is going to be a half-step highlight that'll let me get a bit more aggressive with the application. Sticking within the boundaries of the front panel, my goal here is to build up a soft highlight on the top of her bust and blush up the soft definition of her abs. Trust me, the more subtle you can make this highlight, the more sophisticated it'll look in the end. Moving over to the brighter sections, I swapped to Pure Plum and slapped down a few thin coats until I got a solid coverage. Surprisingly, this took a few passes before I liked it, but like most things in this hobby, sometimes a simple thing takes a bit longer than you first expected. Once again, patience is going to be your most valuable tool. For a highlight, it's a 50-50 mix again, this time using Spellbound Fuchsia to brighten up the plum. Now, unlike the boots, there really isn't any hard edges to catch this highlight on, so I'm looking to use this to glow up all the areas where the fabric would be stretching, like her thighs and backside. So long as I keep this to a nice soft touch, I should end up with a kind of 60s aesthetic with super light shifts. And considering when the Wonder Twins had its heyday, it seemed like a good choice. Moving on to her monster hand, I want to keep this short and sweet, starting with 100% coverage of obsidian skin, or rather 95% coverage. If there's some primer showing in between the fingers, it's far from the end of the world. So long as it doesn't grab your notice, it'll be fine as a very dark shadow. Now, to add to those shadows, an all-over wash of soft tone is in order. Just keeping this thin and even is all it'll take to tone it down a bit and settle in the creases. For a highlight pass, leather brown with a medium dry brush is the way to go. It's gonna lay down a good highlight on all of the spiky bits, easy peasy. Just be sure not to overload your brush and you should be able to pull this off on autopilot. Which is good for me, because I was finishing up watching Pluribus. Damn good show. If you like a slow burn sci-fi, check it out. Now to hop back to the suit and add some metallic pop with Greedy Gold. As usual, when using metallics, it's super important to thin down your paint. Metallic pigments clump up faster than regular paints. This will leave a noticeable surface texture if you give it the chance. With that said, there's an even easier way to lay down super smooth and even metallics. And if you're a fan of the channel, you probably know what I'm gonna say. Dry brushing. But it's gonna take a bit of masking to protect the earlier work. Here, I've isolated the chest to contain any overspell, which is unavoidable when it comes to this kind of dry brushing. With everything covered, I can paint with abandon, knowing that my work is safe. Once I've polished it up to a level I like, it's just a matter of coming back in with some black to cut out the negative space. Just don't forget to thin this down too. The chest emblem will be a focal point for viewers, and it doesn't make sense to go through all this trouble for smooth metallics just to have a chunky lumpy black background. Thankfully, even thinned down, black has really good coverage, so it shouldn't take long at all. Time for a very satisfying mask peel. Ooh yeah, that's the stuff. As a bonus, the tops of the boots are just as easy to mask off and repeat the process there. Just be sure to hit up the tops as well so that there isn't a weird broken black ring. And this is a great time to take care of the metallic piping along the front panel of her suit. Finally, Jayna's head is the last to go, and lucky for us, it's the only skin showing on the entire model. And just because I'm in a mood, I want to do something a little different here and give her a bit of a darker edge. To start, I based her skin in Basilisk Red. While most of this is going to be covered up in future layers, this red undertone will influence those layers to keep them from looking so flat. So this may seem like a waste of time, but it's actually pretty important. Next, I broke out the wet palette to mix up a blend of Basilisk and Leopard Stone skin. Starting with the areas that will be the most highlighted, I began layering up her skin tone, being careful to avoid her eyes. While I can just reset them when I'm ready to paint them, being a bit clean here will save me some time. Finally, going with pure leopard skin, I added the peak highlight layers, pushing a majority to the cheekbones, nose, and brow. With the skin done, the eyes needed a bit of attention, so using a very tiny detail brush, I filled in the whites of her eyes. I did this maintaining the dark red outlines that I had preserved from earlier to act as eyeliner. Remember when I said I was going for a bit darker of a look? Well, for me, that translates into demigod eyes. Not having irises is just so ominous, because you can never really tell where they're looking. Plus, I don't have to break out the magnifying glass to try to paint on the pupils. Just make sure you have that darker outline to help draw attention to the eyes, and do your best to keep it even all the way around, and you should be golden. Finally, for makeup, I'm keeping it simple as I usually do with a bit of lipstick, and this time I went with black to match her jet black hair. And it has nothing to do with all the goth girls I was crushing on in high school. Nothing whatsoever. After that, all that was left was to fill in her eyebrows and clean up her hair with the black I already had out. While I usually caution using straight black on a model, when it comes to figures with very dark hair and very fair skin, the black just resonates more with me and makes her skin look even paler. Which, again, has nothing to do with how I feel about goth girls. Nothing at all. I could totally explain this more, but I'm out of time because this model is done. And dang, Jayna, you're looking great. The purples and greens really pop together, and that slate stone base is detailed enough to fit aesthetically without grabbing too much attention from the figure. Hats off to SuperShark for this one. The pose and the snake wrapping around the pillar are just fantastic. I'm looking forward to being able to add Zan to finish this iconic duo. And looking at the renders, I will not be disappointed. If you want to beat me to it, head on over to the SuperShark Patreon and get printing. They're a passionate studio with a love for nostalgia, and their library of STLs are chock full of awesome sculpts to fill your shelf with. Hopefully, you've enjoyed this video and found it informative on your painting journey. I already have the next 2 projects printed and ready to get painted, so I gotta get going. But as always, thank you for watching, stay creative, and always enjoy the process.